Hello guys, welcome to another video. I ask you to leave your like and subscribe to the channel to not miss any of our stories. My name is Amanda, and my life has been shaped by deep loves, unbreakable bonds, and unexpected secrets. I grew up believing that family is the foundation of everything, and this belief was strengthened when I met my friend Stefan and his brother Andrew, whom I married. They brought into my life an indescribable joy and companionship that I had never known. But fate has a curious way of testing our convictions, and over the years, I discovered that love can be both a blessing and a challenge. This is the story of how our family was built, challenged, and finally transformed by a secret that none of us could have predicted. I was marked by the day I held my son, Benjamin, for the first time. He was born on a sunny spring morning, bringing with him a wave of happiness that lit up my life and Andrew's. The family was ecstatic with the arrival of the first grandchild. My mother-in-law cried with joy, and my brother-in-law, Stefan, smiled proudly. Stefan has always been very important to me. Since I met Andrew, the three of us were inseparable. In fact, it was Stefan who introduced me to Andrew. I met Stefan in college. He was my literature classmate. We quickly became friends, studied together in the library, and shared long conversations about books and our dreams for the future. One day, he invited me to a party at his house, and it was there that I met Andrew. I remember the moment as if it were yesterday. Andrew was in the kitchen, desperately trying to fix a blender that had broken. Stefan introduced me to him with a mischievous smile, saying, "This is my older brother, Andrew. He thinks he can fix anything." We laughed, and at that moment, something clicked between us. Stefan's friendship with both of us was the link that united us. Since then, Stefan became not only my friend but also my confidant and support in difficult times. When Andrew and I argued, it was Stefan who made us sit down and talk, always seeking to reconcile our differences. He had a huge heart and was the rock that kept our small group together. On weekends, we all went to the park together, and on Friday nights, we played board games late into the night. Stefan always brought a contagious energy, making us laugh until we cried. I felt truly lucky to have him as a friend and for him to have brought Andrew into my life. Having him by our side at the special moment of Benjamin's birth was more than I could ask for. He held Benjamin with so much care and pride, as if he were his own son. The connection between the three of us seemed unbreakable, and I believed that nothing could change that. As Benjamin grew, he became the center of our world. His first steps, his first words, all the little milestones were celebrated with enthusiasm. Stefan was always present, helping with care and showering Benjamin with affection. Sometimes, I found myself watching the two of them together and felt a warmth in my heart. They had a special connection, something that went beyond the normal relationship between an uncle and a nephew. I told myself that it was just because Stefan was very involved in Benjamin's life, and this closeness only strengthened our family ties. Stefan was the first to arrive at Benjamin's birthday parties and the last to leave, helping to clean up and putting away the toys that Benjamin scattered around the house. On Friday nights, while Andrew was still at work, Stefan would come over to play hide and seek or build Lego castles. Benjamin would laugh and jump into his uncle's arms, asking to be lifted high, as if he could touch the sky. On cold winter nights, Stefan would bring ingredients so they could make cookies together. The kitchen would turn into a cheerful mess of flour and laughter, and the smell of freshly baked cookies would fill the house. When Benjamin fell ill, Stefan was always there, bringing homemade soup and funny stories to cheer him up. Stefan also taught Benjamin to play soccer, taking him to the field on weekends. They spent hours kicking the ball around and practicing passes. Stefan had endless patience, encouraging Benjamin to keep trying, not to give up. He was Benjamin's biggest cheerleader, always present at games, shouting and applauding every move his nephew made. Meanwhile, Andrew watched the close bond between his brother and our son. Andrew loved Benjamin deeply, but his work demanded much of his time and energy, making him an absent father in many moments. Sometimes, he casually remarked how Stefan seemed to have a sixth sense about what Benjamin needed. On other occasions, I could see a glint of jealousy in his eyes, though he never openly admitted it. Yet, there were moments when Andrew expressed his discomfort. "Sometimes it feels like Stefan is more of a father than an uncle," he said one night while we were in the kitchen. I reassured Andrew, saying that Stefan's dedication only showed how much he loved Benjamin and wanted to be an important part of his life. Still, Andrew couldn't help but feel a twinge of insecurity. He began to strive even harder to create special moments with Benjamin, taking him fishing, building models together, and actively participating in his school activities. Andrew wanted to ensure that our son knew he was his hero, his real father. The combination of these feelings created a complex dynamic in our family. Stefan's constant and engaging presence seemed to be both a blessing and a source of unspoken tension. Andrew and Stefan shared an undeniable love for Benjamin, but each in their own way, trying to balance the desire to protect and nurture the boy who was the center of our world. And I, observing this web of emotions and relationships, felt a mixture of gratitude and slight discomfort. I thought that Stefan's closeness to Benjamin was just a reflection of the love he had for our family, an extension of the affection he had always shown for Andrew and me. And perhaps that was true. But little did I know, there was more behind that bond than I could have imagined. Years passed quickly. Benjamin was 5 years old when I took him for routine exams to check his growth and development. The doctor requested some standard blood tests, and that was when they noticed something peculiar in the results. Benjamin's blood type did not match either Andrew's or mine. At first, I didn't think much of it, thinking it might be a laboratory error. I called the office and requested the tests be redone. After all, mistakes happen. But when the new results came back, the mismatch persisted. I was intrigued and a little worried, but still believed there was a simple explanation. Perhaps even a rare genetic mutation, I thought. But as the days passed, this small doubt turned into a constant shadow in my mind. I decided to consult a genetics specialist to better understand what was happening. The doctor, after hearing our story and reviewing the tests, suggested I undergo a paternity test. It was like a punch to the stomach. I didn't want to believe that this was necessary, let alone talk to Andrew about it, but the doctor's insistence and the growing doubt within me convinced me otherwise. I had the idea to secretly collect Andrew's DNA without him noticing. I took some strands of hair from him while he slept, a coffee cup where he had left his saliva, and even his toothbrush. Similarly, I collected material from Benjamin and took it to the doctor for testing. I acted naturally since then and didn't mention anything to anyone. I waited anxiously for the lab results. I will never forget the moment the results arrived. I was alone at home when the envelope came in the mail. My heart pounded as my hands trembled while tearing open the paper. Inside, a simple report with words that would change our lives forever. Andrew was not Benjamin's biological father. I felt the ground disappear beneath my feet. The words danced before my eyes as I tried to process what I was reading. The truth I had never suspected surfaced with devastating force. Stefan, my brother-in-law and close friend, was the only other man who could be Benjamin's father. Since the birth of my son, there had been a small voice in the back of my mind whispering an unsettling possibility, which I always tried to suppress, lying to myself that it meant absolutely nothing. I remembered a specific night, years ago, that I had spent years trying to bury in my memory. It was a night when we were celebrating Andrew's promotion at work. The house was full of friends and family, all happy and relaxed. Stefan and I had a few more glasses of wine than usual, and when Andrew had to leave to deal with an emergency at work, we continued to celebrate. The guests gradually left, but Stefan stayed. At some point, the light conversation turned into something more intimate, and the harmless closeness turned into a kiss. A moment of weakness and emotion that quickly became something more. We let ourselves be carried away by the moment, and that night, we made love. After that, surrounded by the atmosphere of euphoria, we found ourselves alone in the living room. He looked at me with an intensity one had never noticed before and, in a serious tone, confessed his feelings. "Amanda," he began hesitantly, "I need to tell you something I've kept for years. I love you and have always been in love with you. From the moment I met you, I knew it was you. I talked about you to Andrew, and he said he would like to meet you, so I introduced you too. But I never thought you would fall in love with my brother, let alone marry him knowing my feelings. You seemed happy when you started dating, so I thought it would be better to give up and leave the way clear for him. I kept this hidden from you, but he always knew." As time went by, Andrew continued to talk about how amazing you were, and I felt the bitter taste of regret for not having told you my feelings before he stole you from me. I, surprised and confused, felt my heart beat faster. Stefan had always been a confidant and close friend. But I had never imagined that he harbored such deep feelings for me. What frustrated me the most, and seemed to be the worst of it all, was that at that time I felt exactly the same way. When he introduced me to Andrew, I began to accept that perhaps he didn't like me as I liked him. So I began to open my heart to Andrew, who had always been more perceptive and direct, flirting with me from the start, making his intentions clear. I even liked him and decided to give him a chance. It went so far that we got married and had Benjamin, who was the best thing that ever happened to us. But the truth that I spent years trying to deny to myself was that my love had always belonged to Stefan. The light and casual conversation we had started that night took on a completely different tone, filled with emotions that should never have been awakened. After that night, the weight of his words hung between us, and mine went unsaid, floating in the air like an unfulfilled promise. I quietly decided it was best to leave that moment of vulnerability in the past. I convinced myself it was an isolated mistake, a lapse in judgment that would never happen again and should never be revealed to Andrew. I wanted to believe my indiscretion would have no consequences, that our secret could be buried deep. Not long after that, I discovered I was pregnant with Benjamin, and everyone in the family was overjoyed and astonished by the news. By the sheer odds of probability, I always considered Benjamin to be Andrew's son. As Benjamin grew, and the connection between Stefan and my son became increasingly evident, those unspoken words and the night we shared became uncomfortable memories. There was a secret that threatened the stability of our family. When I had the answers through the paternity test, the truth weighed on me like a rock. Sitting at the kitchen table, where so many happy memories had been built, I contemplated the devastating implications of the test results. Andrew wasn't Benjamin's biological father. Stefan, my brother-in-law and close friend, was the real father. How could I deal with this? How could I tell the truth to Andrew, the man I had grown to love, and who loved Benjamin with all his heart? Andrew came home from work later that night, tired but happy to be home. I tried to act naturally, but he noticed something was wrong. "Is everything okay?" he asked, his voice full of concern. I felt my heart race. I knew I couldn't hide the truth any longer. The shadow of guilt that had loomed over me for so many years could no longer be ignored, especially with a proven paternity test result in my hands. "Andrew, we need to talk," I said, trying to stay calm. We sat on the couch, and I began to tell the story. I spoke about the night Stefan confessed his feelings and the moment we succumbed to temptation. The words seemed impossible to say, but I knew I needed to be honest. Andrew remained silent, absorbing every word. When I finished, he abruptly stood up, the anger and pain visible in his eyes. "Are you saying Benjamin isn't my son?" he yelled, his voice full of incredulity and despair. I tried to reach for his hand, but he pulled away. Love, I'm so sorry. I never wanted this to happen. I thought I was doing the best for our family. Andrew sneered, saying, sleeping with my brother and having a child with him seemed like the best for our family? I'm feeling disgusted with you both. He left the house, leaving me alone with my guilt and regret. I knew he needed time to process the revelation, but I feared our family would never be the same and worried about how this could affect Benjamin, who was the most innocent in this story. The days following the revelation were a whirlwind of emotions. Andrew distanced himself from me and Benjamin, spending most of his time at work or with friends. Stefan, noticing the change, tried to talk to Andrew, but he made it clear that he wanted Stefan away from our son and forbade him from coming near Benjamin. So Stefan began to imagine what might be happening and temporarily respected his brother's decision. Days turned into weeks, and the distance between Andrew and Stefan seemed to grow more and more. I watched helplessly as the two men I loved struggled with their internal demons. One night, Andrew finally confronted Stefan. He came home late again, but this time there was a grim determination in his eyes. He called Stefan and said, "Stefan, we need to talk. Now." "I'm waiting for you at my house," he said, his voice low and full of tension. I watched from the kitchen door as Stefan arrived, and the two brothers faced off. Andrew stood, his fists clenched at his sides. Stefan, on the other hand, looked more vulnerable than I had ever seen him. "Andrew, I know you're angry, and I understand. But we need to resolve this," Stefan began, his voice trembling slightly. Andrew took a step forward, his face contorted in an expression of pain. "Did you know Benjamin could be your son? And still, you said nothing. You lied to me, to all of us." Stefan shook his head, trying to find the right words. "I knew there was a possibility, but I never wanted this to happen. Amanda and I made a mistake, but that doesn't change the fact that I've always wanted the best for our family." Andrew let out a bitter laugh. "The best for our family? You think this is the best for us? Destroying my marriage, getting my wife pregnant, hiding all these years that you're Benjamin's father? The father of Benjamin? I was deceived all these years. How can we move forward after this?" Andrew shouted, expressing his revolt against his brother. Stefan took a step forward, his expression full of determination. "Andrew, I'm willing to do anything to fix this. I made a terrible mistake, but I'm here to face it. Benjamin needs us, all of us. He's not to blame for any of this." Andrew closed his eyes for a moment, taking a deep breath. When he opened them again, there was a deep sadness in his gaze. "I don't know if I can forgive you, Stefan." Stefan nodded. "I understand, Andrew. And I'm here to do whatever it takes. Let's get through this together, for Benjamin's sake and our family's. Please forgive me." I finally stepped into the room, my hands trembling as I approached the two men who meant so much to me. "We need to be strong, for Benjamin. He deserves to have a united family, full of love." Andrew and Stefan looked at me, their eyes full of conflicting emotions. I knew the road would be long and difficult, but at that moment, I felt a spark of hope. Together, we would find a way to heal our wounds and rebuild our family, one step at a time. The months that followed were difficult for everyone. Andrew and I tried to reconcile our feelings, but the distrust and pain were always present. Benjamin, sensing the tension, became confused and sad. I decided I needed to do something to help our family heal. I organized a dinner with Andrew and Stefan and asked Andrew to make an effort to accept his brother's presence at our table, and he consented. I was willing to face my fears and ask for forgiveness from both of them. I felt awful for coming between them and destroying their relationship. "I know I made a terrible mistake," I said, my voice trembling with emotion. "But I love you both and want our family to stay together. You love each other, and Benjamin also deserves to grow up with the love and support of all of us." Andrew and Stefan looked at each other, the tension still evident. But slowly, they began to talk about their feelings, their pains, and hopes. The conversation was long and difficult, but in the end, an understanding began to emerge. Andrew understood that perhaps he hadn't been 100% fair by getting involved with me, knowing I was Stefan's secret love. There was no innocent part in this story. Everyone made a mistake at some point, except for Benjamin, who would be the most affected by this breakup. At that moment, I realized that although I harbored feelings for Stefan, my husband was Andrew, the father of my child, with whom I had built a family, and the right thing to do was to give him all my love. Andrew finally looked at me, his gaze softer. "I still love you, Amanda. And I love Benjamin. We'll find a way to get through this together." Stefan agreed. "I'm also willing to do whatever it takes for our family to stay together. Benjamin is the center of our lives, and he deserves the best from us." That day, my heart filled with hope, thinking that everything could be overcome and put in the past once and for all. However, despite our efforts to reconcile, Andrew couldn't overcome the betrayal. The pain was too deep, the trust broken beyond repair. The months passed, and it seemed that everything was getting back on track again, but he told me this with tears in his eyes, and I knew he was being sincere. "Amanda, I tried, but I can't continue. We need to separate. I'll keep loving you, but I don't want to stay married to you anymore." I was doomed to reap the bitter fruits of the mistakes I had made. It was a painful decision, but we understood it was best for everyone. Andrew and I separated but did our best to maintain contact as before so Benjamin wouldn't suffer. We arranged a co-parenting system that allowed Benjamin to spend time with both me, Andrew, and Stefan. We never told Benjamin that Stefan was his father. Because in reality, he had always been as participative as a common father, and we all decided together that this didn't need to change. Over time, Andrew found new peace and began to rebuild his life. He, Stefan, and I continued to raise Benjamin together, trying to give him the stability and love he needed. Although our family was never the same, we did our best to ensure Benjamin felt loved and secure. The secret that once threatened to destroy our family became a catalyst for growth and change. Over time, we learned to live with the consequences of our actions and focus on Benjamin's well-being. Our family found a new form of balance, where love, forgiveness, and acceptance were the pillars. Benjamin grew up surrounded by love, even though his family's structure was different from most. He never knew the truth about his biological paternity, but he always felt the unwavering care and support from Andrew and Stefan. The two brothers learned to respect and support each other again, finding a new type of brotherhood based on accepting imperfections and understanding the past. My relationship with Andrew evolved into a deep and sincere friendship. Although our marriage ended, our partnership as parents remained strong. With Stefan, I maintained a special bond, but always within the limits of friendship and respect for the new directions our lives took. The mistakes of the past taught us all valuable lessons about love, trust, and forgiveness. Benjamin grew up to be a confident and loving young man, knowing that, regardless of the complexities of our lives, he would always have a family that loved him deeply. And so, despite the difficulties and challenges, we found a new way to be a family, showing that even in the most complicated situations, love and understanding can prevail and create a future full of hope and possibilities. So, what did you think of this touching story? We hope you enjoyed it. If you've experienced something similar, share it with us in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. Your story can inspire a lot of people too.